Enterprise Meets Cosmos. I'm Layla from Yap Global and will be moderating today. I'm going to give everyone the opportunity to introduce themselves and then we can start with the questions. So starting with Alex.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm from Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile, and I'm the co-founder of the Web3 infrastructure unit.
Hi, Humayun. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Fetch AI.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Course One. So we run staking infrastructure. I've been involved in the Cosmos ecosystem since the start. I was previously like COO of Tendermint and on the board of the ICF as well for many years.
Got another Brian here, Brian Horn. Run business development at GSR, a regulated market maker. Been in the space for 11 years, come on November. Also an investment firm and robust over-the-counter trading firm.
Brilliant, thanks for joining us today. So to start off with, I'm going quite broad and this is to anyone, but maybe I'll call someone out. We're talking about enterprise in Cosmos meets Cosmos, but why do we want enterprise in the space? Why do we want institutions joining us? Maybe Alex, you want to start?
It's probably a good question for you.
Yeah, because I think we're one of the only enterprises here. We need enterprises, as I mentioned in our presentation before. We don't need to decouple the Web3 and the Web2 users, definitely. We need to couple them. We need to connect the Web2 users in Web3. And this can, and I think, so from my perspective, this has to happen by enterprises, by concrete enterprise use cases where the Web2 users are. So on our side, we have more than 200 million B2C users, mobile users, as well as broadband users, and we need to attract them with concrete use cases, and this is the point why we need enterprises in our ecosystem.
Just to add to that, I think there is professionalism and realism which comes with it too. We are in a very fast-paced tech development kind of atmosphere where most of the founders are quite young and inexperienced. To have enterprise engage and give some reality check on what is real, what is not, and what can be delivered. I think it's a good mix, and of course, Web3 is open for everybody, so why not enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, if you just take like the economic activity in the world, right, much of it is conducted through various companies that, so getting them involved in crypto, I think is, key for crypto actually to start becoming the fabric of the economic activity in the world, and I think that's where we all want to go.
Yeah, I guess just to piggyback off that, right, it'll just add additional growth, mainstream adoption. Brian just alluded to additional economic activity, but you have increased liquidity and influx of capital in this space, which is what we certainly need. I think other things as well, you have to think about more enterprises come in, the more regulated this space will be, which is what a ton of other past panelists have discussed, and something that we need to kind of grow and enhance and get to and work on regulation for legitimacy, for trust, and just additional mainstream adoption in the space. So I think all extremely important.
Fantastic, and really leads into my next question well, because as we know, there's sort of a almost political or social sort of fight between the degen side of Web3, I was about to swear, but no sort of acceptance, happiness with regulators, no belief that we should be out in the system, but rather outside the system. So in your experience, do you think that there is sort of a way to marry these two, or is it working with enterprises, you sort of have to acknowledge that it will be a fight as we move on in the space? I don't know who wants to take that first, Brian.
Sure, I mean, I actually think the Cosmos tech stack is extremely well suited to kind of bring those together. Because in the end, for example, you can have chains that, let's say if you talk about asset issuance, right, you could have some kind of permission chain that's controlled by some enterprises. It can even be a private chain that then like, issues assets, and then you could IBC it over to a chain that's more like permissionless, and you have DeFi. I think Mantra is doing something like that, but I've like long expected that. I mean, before Cosmos, I was actually working in an enterprise blockchain startup that was building on Tendermint. And we were doing all these like permissioned Tendermint chains. And so I think that kind of, it's probably like the best suited tech stack, I think, in crypto to, really combine more like, more stringent regulatory needs with also the more like open like DeFi system. So, I mean, I think so far it's still pretty limited what we see there, but I would expect that ends up becoming like an area where we can see a lot of growth.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Yeah. I guess to add on to that, I do see a point where they're married, and when I say they, Web3 degens as well as institutions, but right now there's a pretty massive polarization and certainly a dichotomy, right? Like when you think about Web3 degens, they don't really, not as cognizant of smart contract risk, of counterparty risk, obviously hunting for alpha wherever it is and taking the 100+% yield when farming and specific protocols, and then you look at institutions that are hyper focused on AML, KYC, Conti looking at specific controls as to whether DEXs have OFAC controls, ensuring that they're not trading against North Koreans or geofencing U.S. users just to abide by U.S. regulations. So these are things that are affecting this polarization. I think maybe at some point they will be married. It will certainly take time, right? I don't know, me as an individual or degen, I don't want to constantly KYC on every platform that I'm utilizing. It just creates fragmentation and friction. Maybe there are certain solutions. Obviously, DID is something that could be implemented, people are working on, but I think it'll get there, it'll just take time.
Yeah, I think very similar opinion there. I think it'll just take time, really. But I think we should mostly be focusing on utility because different utilities will have different requirements. Some of them don't really need regulation unless you start trading stuff. So I think one thing which Web3 is missing is a lot more use cases, a lot more utility. And I think we focus too much on solving a problem which is to come, but we're not solving the problem which is right here, which is we don't have too many places where you can actually use it. And I think that's, for me, that would be the most critical point.
Yeah, I think easy to double down this was mindset, because from our perspective, it's not the regulation, because we are not in DeFi, not in finance. I think the business need. It's where are the business needs? These are the questions our customers ask us for use cases on top of Web3. And they don't ask for regulation. They ask, and if you can't answer this, the business need with concrete numbers, then you don't need regulations. But this is only beside of or outside of the DeFi ecosystem. So this is the point we see here.
Very interesting. Brian, you already brought it up about Cosmos, providing maybe a better environment for this marriage, this development. I was wondering across the board, what does Cosmos provide for enterprises that maybe other blockchains don't, or what specifically just by itself it does provide? Obviously, Brian, you've already answered a little bit, but maybe we can hear from Alex first. Why Cosmos?
Why Cosmos? I think what we already mentioned is the Cosmos ecosystem. At the end, the customer, so our customer, he don't ask for the technology. He asks for the, as I mentioned, for the use case and for the business and for the business case behind this. The second question is which technology, and we can't bring to the customer and ask, okay, here this is the cool technology, please use this. This is the wrong approach. So at the end, there are good ideas and good advantages of Cosmos in comparison to other solutions. but I don't see that as a competition between Cosmos, Ethereum, Polkadot, anyhow. I see it more as a competition between Cosmos and the existing systems in Web 2. For example, for Fetch, the centralized AI agent or centralized AI technology in comparison to decentralized AI technology. And this is the point we need to tackle. Tackle SAP, tackle Oracle as an ERP company, as this technology, centralized technology, and not in the competition between different Web3 ecosystems. Yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of started evaluating where Fetch Chain would go and where would we build solutions. And Cosmos had the most depth of technical SDKs that was available at that time, which is why we decided to use it. And I think what is also quite interesting is all the projects which started after us building on Cosmos. They're very interesting. They're bringing new tools. Of course, there are other ecosystems, but we feel for AI, we are also adding to that mix, and I feel that the SDKs are well suited to actually start commercializing AI use cases.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective and a GSR perspective, I think why Cosmos is just generally the tech, as these guys alluded to, right? Like you have inherent interoperability and composability within Cosmos, particularly with IBC, and then kind of couple that with shared security just for additional kind of security comfort, particularly in the Cosmos ecosystem. It's a perfect fit, and I think gives it the ability and a great chance to marry the two, as we spoke about in the previous question.
Really interesting. I like the idea that we're maybe not fighting within chains, but rather compared to the standard Web 2 stack. In terms of AI, actually, I was curious, sort of, how have you experienced being a decentralized AI and the sort of response to that? Because AI is being treated very differently to how Web 3 is, just sort of overall, it seems.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because we're at the beginning of it, which is the most interesting part. But also, I feel generally amongst the use cases that Web3 has been exploring, it's a very natural fit. And Fetch was set up in 2018, and we've been saying this for a while now. It's just that the market is now kind of coming to mature. Well, it's not still maturity, but it's coming to fruition a little bit more. If you are going to train AIs, you will need the compute, which if you're not looking to just buy into one single entity, then by its nature, it's going to be decentralized effectively. And then on top of that, if you're building different AI models, these models are not effectively centralized because not every entity can build one model. And you can see that in large language models because you're seeing a lot of open source models. But ultimately, at some point, these open source models stagnate. So to continue and develop them, you need to have this kind of Web3 approach, which is a bit more decentralized. And I think Web3 also has some very good incentive structures, which could be applied in this way. From Fetch's side, we are looking at the application layer, which again is going to change in the way we develop applications and is going to become very agentic, which lends itself to Web3 quite nicely.
What is the experience of telling more enterprise projects that?
I mean, you can
yeah,
comment on it.
we already receive, so we had several partnerships together in the Fetch AI Foundation, for example, with Bosch. We had several meetings with partners from our side, so our customers in the automotive industry and in other industries. And yeah, there's a lot of education first, definitely. You need to educate them because AI is quite new for them, honestly, especially in the German market. And they are tackling how to use ChatGPT on a data privacy way. But if you find the right people to talk to, and I guess over the last month we found the right people on our side, then they understood the problem and they understood the challenge decentralized AI can solve. And so good feedback by now. We need to push this now into concrete use cases, concrete proof of concept, where they see the value of this in comparison to centralized AI. But you see, what is the competition? Huh? There's Microsoft with their Copilot, then you have Google and OpenAI. It's getting tough, right? But you need to convince them, or they need to see the potential here and the advantage in comparison to centralized AI.
I'm also curious from like the finance DeFi side for Brian's. What's the experience of trying to discuss sort of decentralized finance with enterprise and institutions? Because they're obviously more risk averse, so is it an uphill battle, or are they sort of starting to understand what the benefits are?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily something we do very much, but I do feel like we have pretty decent visibility there, and I would say with more institutional type of organizations, they really do, the first thing would be like, okay, hold crypto, right? And then the second thing is probably staking, right? Which is also like, simple, predictable, it looks kind of like a fixed income type instrument. I think when it comes to DeFi, this is something that, they don't tend to engage with, because also this is like volatile, it changes a lot. I'm sure that it's going to change with time, but I feel like so far it is not something, I think if you see like DeFi protocols, not really something that institutional organizations tend to engage with a lot at the moment. But, I'm sure within the next few years, this is going to start changing.
In terms of, sorry, this is Brian, GSR. In terms of how we engage with institutions compared to sort of traditional finance outfits, what are we getting right and what are we maybe getting wrong?
Yeah. Well, first I could piggyback off what Brian said. It's baby steps, right? I think there will be a sense of comfort. I think just there are some infrastructure barriers, and what I mean by that, it's like we are working on a ton of things in the space, from scalability. Obviously, we do have like rollups and L2s, but obviously when you think about like ETH L2s, still relies on ETH final settlement, and where you have that, you have latency issues, you have gas fees, things along the lines of that. You have bridge risk as well. So these are all things institutions are thinking about, and that we will enhance. And as things mature, I think institutions will come in, but it will take some time. Outside of that, you have the regulatory side of things, and I think people have to be cognizant of institutions and their inherent kind of regulatory structure. And these are things that we have to be cognizant about and cater to that, whether it's customized middleware to be able to fully connect into those type of systems. So it will take time, and we will get there. There just needs to be a little bit more iteration, enhancement, and maturity on that side of things. From traditional perspective, in regards to engagement, I did allude to the kind of infra side, but from a capital market side, we're actually doing a great job, right? When you think of large institutions already buying Bitcoin, when you think of the approval of the Bitcoin ETF and ETH ETF, which was actually approved earlier than expected, you still have large allocators investing indirectly in the space, right? You have massive VC funds like Pantera raised $1 billion fund in, April or May, constantly speaking to friends I know at VC funds, at Borderless, Ribbit, 10T, that once struggled to raise funds and now are raising pretty easily, right? So I think from a capital market side, we're actually doing a great job, and there is so much progression. And it will just iterate and mature even more. I think we'll get additional traditional financial institutions to come in, especially once there's more tooling and more products. And what I mean by this is I guess just efficiency on the infrastructure side, things like cross-margining to be able to be a little bit more capital efficient, maybe real prime brokers to be able to do this as well. Other ways to invest in the space, like different structured products or things like swaps for synthetic exposure. So large institutions don't need to hold the underlying. So these are a ton of things that I think will come. Again, it's just baby steps.
Maybe at one point, so especially in the European market, especially in Germany, one interesting use case I think it's rising over the last month is tokenized securities and especially tokenized bonds. So I saw that Siemens as well as other enterprises, especially the treasury of the enterprises, are looking or are using blockchain tech, decentralized tech to clear and settle and reconcile their bonds. We are looking into it as well. We try to push our treasury in this direction as well, but this is interesting use case to go bind thread fee with the tech behind. It's so, at least so boring because you're only using decentralized technology to store your ownership of these bond. So it's quite simple use case, but it's regulated and it works. And the time to market and the cost efficiency is there, and you can calculate this. This is quite interesting, I see, in the German market.
Brilliant. I think we need to round up now, but Humayun, Brian from Course One, anything that you're looking forward to in terms of enterprise adoption in the next 5 to 10 years? There's something you're keeping an eye on?
Well, it's a technology, and I think adoption will come when utility comes. I just always say utility is really what we need.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I think totally. I look forward to seeing, just some of the Cosmos chains really getting a lot of traction and a lot of usage. I imagine it's not far away. I mean, we have decent usage on a whole bunch of chains already, but I feel like, I'm pretty positive that next 1 to 2 years, we're going to really see sort of inflection point and things start to really take off. I mean, I was just before looking at the IBC Explorer, for example, and already, right, the IBC volume is I don't know, 30,000 transactions a day or something, or it's a decent amount already, but I think, I'm very bullish that we're about to see things really take off.
Brilliant. Glad to end on that positive note. Thank you so much for talking today.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.